What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best Chronomancer builds in Path of Exile 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the best setups. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for any game. And then finally we will go over the passive skill tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what atlas passive should you use. So we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in the description or the pinned comment. So this setup is a new combo between the Spark Sorceress and the Cast Comet and the Time Freeze. Our build will rely on high spark crits rather than drowning them in hundreds of different sparks. This way our clear speed will be as good as any other sorceress, but against bosses is the place where we are going to shine. Our crit scaling will reach crazy levels of damage. Even if you don't one-shot the boss, then you will have about 13 to 14 seconds, plus 7 seconds and even 3 more additional seconds of the time stops in your disposal. So if you are ready to destroy enemies and pretty much one-shot the bosses, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we are going with the Sorceress and our ascendancy is the Chronomancer. Then for the first skill we have Time Freeze with the Wind Wave, second Wind and Unbreakable. Then second we got the Time Snap with no support gems. Then next we got Temporal Rift with Ingenuity. Next we have Temporal Chains with the Cursed Ground, Encumbrance, Expanse, Magnified Effect and Ritualistic Curse. Then for the next one we have the Cast on Critical with the Comet, Spell Echo, Elemental Focus, Inspiration and the Concentrated Effect. Next we got Conductivity with the Heightened Curse and the Focus Curse. Next we got the Soul Offering with the Minion Mastery, Dance Maccabi and the Ablation. Next we have Frost Wall with the Icicle, Cold Mastery, Spell Cascade and the Cold Exposure. Next up we have the Archmage with the Clarity and the Lightning Mastery. And finally we are using the Spark with the Acceleration, Electrocute, Consider Casting, Arcane Surge and the Arcane Tempo. Most of this setup is structured around using our sparks for AoV and temporal chains with Time Freeze for the single target. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell damage node, and then go like this while taking all of these 3, so the raw power, practice science and the critical overload. Then now we keep on going until we get to the sudden escalation. Then from here again we keep going until the top and then take right. And then keep going until we get to the Whispers of the Doom, and then get both these lightning nodes. Then afterwards we keep going while taking pretty much all of these nodes right here, and then our second stop point is at this Eldritch Battery Keystone. And then finally from here we want to get all the way down here while taking these 3, so the True Strike, for the Juggler and the Deadly Force. And now from this point and onwards we can circle back and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then later on the priority doesn't really matter that much. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Footprints in the Sand. Then second, now and again. Then next we want the ultimate command, and then finally select the Unbound and Core. So feel free to use this exact same path as we have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website. And this should make it easier for you to follow the path. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Siphoning Wand, and for the bonus stats we want to gain damage as extra lightning damage, increase spell damage, more to max mana, more levels to all cold spells, increased mana regen and critical hit chance. Then also we got an offhand called the Expert Plummet Focus with Energy Shield. And for more we want increased spell and lightning damage, max mana, more to intelligence and increased mana regen and critical hit chance to spells. Then also we have the second weapon set, which is very important for our build to fully function. So for the weapon we got the Rattling Scepter with the max mana, reduced attribute requirements and more levels of all minion skills. While for our offhand we got the Crest of the Artura Shield with increased armor and energy shield, more to intelligence and increased mana regen and cooldown recovery. Then for helmet we have the expert feather tiara with energy shield, and for more we got max energy shield, max mana, and more to fire and cold resistance. Then for the chest we have the expert Kate raiment with energy shield, and for more we want increased mana regen and flask mana recovery, more to spirit and chaos and lightning resistance. Then for the belt we have the plate belt with more to armor, max mana, and cold and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the expert Sombri gloves with energy shield, and for more we want max energy shield, max mana, and more to critical damage bonus. Then for boots we're using the expert feather sandals with energy shield, and for more we need increased movement speed, max energy shield, and max mana. Then for our first ring we got the amethyst ring with the chaos resistance, and for more we want increased lightning damage, max mana, increased cast speed, and mana regen. While for the second one we have the breach ring with increased cold and lightning damage, max mana, increased cast speed, and increased mana regen rate. And then finally for amulet we have the solar amulet with more to spirit, and for bonus stats we want max mana, more to spirit, and increased mana regen. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our rotation is quite simple, but you will need to get used to it. So what we want to do is first of all start by using the temporal chains, then we follow that up with the conductivity. Then next use the time freeze in the combination with the soul offering. Then next we also want to activate the frost wall, and then from here just spam the sparks until the boss dies. But mainly for AoE and weak enemies we basically will turn into a spark build. So just keep spamming sparks and see all of these crazy crits popping off left and right. The only thing you need to keep in mind is the defense. Our build does not have energy shields, so mind over matter is a good defensive layer, but should not be heavily relied on in the endgame. While the time freeze has a high cooldown, so feel free to use it 24/7. Then also the second wind for 33% no cooldown. And then the time snap reset will allow you to use the time freeze continuously in the combat. Overall, if you can master these skills, then you will become unkillable with very high DPS output at the same time. This setup's main playstyle is built around putting up a frost wall, and then blasting enemies with the ice comet. And as the cold penetration and cold exposure is incredibly OP in the endgame, so this build works amazing on big groups of enemies, where we simply use 2 skill combo and cover our entire screen with the frost projectiles that explode and do massive amounts of damage. On top of this, we are going to be using nodes like Now and Again, Footprint in the Sand, and many more to completely reset our cooldowns, so we can basically spam our frost walls and speed farm through every single content in the game. Then on top of this, for our defense we are going to be focusing on the energy shield and its recharge rate, so we could get unlimited amount of shields and much more. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the sorceress, and our ascendancy is the Chronomancer. Then for the first skill we have the Frost Wall with the support gem called the Inspiration, Font of Mana, and Font of Blood. Then second we get the Comet with the spell Cascade, Arcane Tempo, and Unleash. Then next we got the Cold Snap with Magnified Effect, Consider Casting, and Inevitable Critical. Next we have the Frost Bomb with the Fast Forward, Second Wind, and Ingenuity. Next up we have the Lightning Warp with just the Shock Siphon. Next we got the Temporal Rift with the Clarity. Then for one of the last ones we have the Cast on Freeze with the Impetus, Comet, and the Spell Echo. And finally for our last one we are using the Arctic Armor with the Glacianation and Vitality. Most of this setup is structured around using the Frost Wall and the Comet to delete enemies in seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell damage node. And our goal is to first of all focus on the spell damage nodes and only afterwards on the defense. So let's get the raw power and the path of winter. Then next let's go to the left and take the exploit the elements. Then from here we keep on moving forwards, and here, where the path splits, you only want to take both of these. So the climate change and the overexposure. Then now keep moving forwards until the end and get all of these. Then from here we now want to move to the right side and get only the damage and the freeze build-up node. And then from here we can go back all the way from here where we began and unlock all the defense nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again. And for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the footprints in the sand. Then second, get the apex of the moment. Then third, Navan again. And then finally select the circular heartbeat. Next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start, we wanna first of all get to the left side, and then get all of these, and then keep going down until you get this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we circle back a little, and this time keep going up until we get the second keystone called the Unstoppable Energies. And then from this point and onwards, you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. But then on top of this, we have even more passives, which in order that you unlock them doesn't really matter, as long as you do this in this exact path. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses. And then on top of this, we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup. And then finally our breach setup. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Attuned Wand with the mana drain, and for the bonus stats we want extra lightning damage, increased spell damage, max mana, intelligence, and more levels to all cold spells. Also we got an offhand called the Advanced Woven Focus with the energy shield, and for more we want increased cold damage, max energy shield, intelligence, and increased critical hit chance. Then for the helmet we have the Advanced Feather Tiara with the energy shield, and for more we want max life, accuracy, cold and fire resistance. Then for chest we have the Advanced Altar Robe with the energy shield. And for bonus stats we are using the max life, more spirit, life regen per second and chaos resistance. Then for belt we have the Fine Belt with the faster flask charges per second. And for more we want max life, max energy shield, cold resistance and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the Advanced Interested Gloves with the energy shield. And for more we want max energy shield, max life and lightning resistance. Then for boots we're using the Advanced Feather Sandals with the energy shield. And for more we want increased movement speed, max life, fire and lightning resistance. Then for our first ring we got the Sapphire Ring with the cold resistance. And for more we want adds to lightning damage, evasion and increased mana regen. While on the second one we have the Topaz Ring with the lightning resistance. And for more we want increased cast speed and life regen per second. And then finally for the amulet we got the Lapis Amulet with the intelligence. And for more we want accuracy, max mana, more spirit and chaos resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our main rotation and the highest DPS combo is to first of all put up a Frost Wall, and then blast down your enemies with the Comet. Then also we can occasionally use the Frost Bomb before casting the Comet, but this is only required for the rare sword bosses. And then finally we can also use the Lightning Warp to call the enemies and then use the Temporal Rift to reposition behind the safety of our Frost Wall. On top of this, from time to time I like to use the Cold Snap, but I found that it's often best to keep the boss frozen, while I continue to spam the Comet, than just rather using the spam damage, but again it's up to you. This setup's main playstyle is built around using the Tree Dragon Mask, which will allow our Lightning Warp to build up freeze in order to proc the cast on freeze with the Lightning Conduit, which will do massive amounts of AoE damage due to the natural shocked ground which is provided by our Lightning Warp, Eldritch Battery and many more to increase our damage and convert all of our shields to mana. Our build will be very mana hungry, but because of our setup we are going to be easily fixing this problem and increasing our AoE damage at the same time. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Sorceress, and our ascendancy is the Stormweaver. Then for the first skill we have the Lightning Warp with the support gems called the Overcharge, Lightning Exposure, Glacianation, Magnified Effect and Inspiration. Then second we got the Archmage with the Lightning Exposure. Then next we get the Ball Lightning with the Arcane Tempo, Unleash, Scatter Shot and Acceleration. Next we have the Lightning Conduit with the Elemental Focus, Ambush, Super Critical and Inevitable Critical. Next up we have the Conductivity with the Heightened Curse and the Persistence. Next we get the Mana Tempest with the Murderous Intent and Premeditation. Next we got Sigil of Power with no support gems. And finally for the last one we are using the Cast on Freeze with the Lightning Conduit, Impetus, Energy Retention and Shock Siphon. Most of this setup is structured around using the Lightning Warp and the Lightning Conduit to delete enemies in seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this energy shield node, and then go like this while grabbing all of these. So pure energy, rapid recharge, mana blessing and the dampening shield. Then next we wanna go to right and get both of these, as well as getting the alternating current. Then from here we now wanna circle back a little and keep going up until this point, and then now turn to left. Then next we keep going until we get to the keystone called the Mind Over Matter, and then also get most of these nodes called the Touch Arcane, All Natural and Desensitization. Next we wanna circle back a little to the point where we left off last time, and now again keep going until we get to the end, and now go to right. And then from here we can just unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Strike twice, then second get the Constant Gale, then third now we want to get the Force of Will, and then finally for the last one we want the Scoring Winds. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start we wanna first of all go to the right side and get all of these nodes, and then keep going down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we circle back a little, and this time keep going up until we get to the second keystone called the Unstable Energies. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. But then on top of this we also have more passives. Which order you unlock them doesn't really matter, so again it's up to you. So this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have the Delirium. Then third we have the bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our breach setup. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Attuned Wand with the mana drain, and for bonus stats we want increased spell damage, max mana, more levels to lightning spells, increased mana regen, and gain mana per every kill. Also we get an offhand called the Advanced Crystal Focus with the Energy Shield. And for more we need increased spell damage, fire and cold resistance. Then for the helmet we have the 3 dragons with the evasion and energy shield. As I previously said, to achieve the highest DPS you will need this item, as his special ability is that now lightning damage from hits will contribute to the freeze, in order to proc our Cast on Freeze with the Lightning Conduit. At the start, this item of course is not required, but if you wanna deal insane amount of damage like you saw from the gameplay, then you will definitely wanna acquire it as soon as possible. Then for the chest we have the Expert's Hexer's Robe with the Energy Shield. And for more we want even more Energy Shield, Max Life, Intelligence and Fire Resistance. Then for the belt we have the Plate Belt with armor. And for more we want even more armor, Max Life, Chaos and Cold Resistance. Getting just one item with a little bit of armor will help a lot with the damage mitigation. My damage taken from physical attacks went from 0 to 10% when I just equipped a 400 armor belt, so I definitely recommend it. Then for the gloves we got the Advanced Interested Gloves with the Energy Shield. And for more we want even more Energy Shield, Max Mana, Fire and Lightning Resistance. Then for boots we're using the Expert Feathered Sandals with the Energy Shield. And for more we got increased movement speed, Max Mana, Intelligence, Fire and Lightning Resistance. Then for our first ring we got the Sapphire Ring with the Cold Resistance. And for more we need Max Mana, increased cast speed, intelligence and more percentage to all elemental resistances. While then on the second one we have the Prismatic Ring with the percentage to all elemental resistances. And for more we want Max Mana and Life, increased cast speed, intelligence and even more percentage to all elemental resistances. And then finally for the amulet we got the Everlasting Gaze This build is built around the mana as it scales the strongest for our DPS due to the Archmage, so again this amulet is the best in slot but not required. At the endgame, you might run into a mana problem if you're low geared, but if you wanna infinitely cast the lightning without even losing mana, then this is the item for you. No matter what gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work, and I will give you 2 rotations. So first of all, for mapping and weak enemies, we want to build our lightning warp to build freeze. So then we could proc our cast on freeze with the lightning condiant. And therefore our quick spammy rotation is just to use the lightning warp and the ball lightning, or perhaps the lightning condiant. And because of the cast on freeze buildup, we are going to be using just 1 or 2 skills, but at the same time activating even more in the background. And that is how we get so many projectiles at the same time. And then second, we get our boss rotation, which a lot of times can even do a one shot. So this time we want to start our rotation by activating the power sigil, and then the mana tempest. And only then you want to use the lightning warp, and then from here again you can begin spamming with the lightning condiant and the conductivity curse. We wanted to place down our preparation skills and the lightning warp to have our shock ground activated, as the damage from the lightning condiant is very dependent on the amount of shock from our shocked ground. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 best builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.